Hi, this is Dave Arnold. Welcome to News Talk 980 CJME's Talk to the Experts. In the studio with me, Andrew Rathwell, Matty O'Connell, both from Look Matters. Guys, good to have you in. Thanks for coming by.
Dave, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, yeah.
I guess first thing, Andrew, what is Look Matters?
Well, gosh, do you have all day? Let me talk a bit about it. The easiest way I always describe it is to say that Look Matters is an advertising agency, but we're really not. While we do advertising for some of our clients, we're actually a marketing firm that has a full range of services within that suite. Everything from interactive website design, consulting, pure marketing, and advertising.
One of the key things I know, and we're going to talk about this a lot today, is social media. This is an area where Look Matters has extensive expertise. You've really done your homework, and you're on the cutting edge on a lot of things. What is social media?
Well, let me start with, I guess, we've recognized the need, I think, to provide the resources within the realm of social media. And so within the 22 people that work at our firm, there are a lot of people who are experts. And with us today is one of the foremost ones, and Matty O'Connell. But social, I think, let's start with the term social media. And the way that we don't even describe it as social media. We describe it as social. And it's a new tool that has gained in prominence to the extent that we got to think about how we're going to use it. Recent example of some data from the radio industry that polled media usage. TV and radio are still number 1 and 2 when it comes to touching people's lives. But social is now number 3. So within the span of 5 to 6 years, it has gone from 0 to number 3. That's a significant tool that we need to be aware of in our marketing and our advertising and how we can use it.
So, Matty, I mean, when you look at it, what do you think of when you think of social?
When I think of social, I'll kind of take a step back and say when the general public thinks of social media, the term in there that gets really misconstrued is the word media. People tend to use it as a traditional medium to say advertise how they would normally on a billboard or in radio or in print. But taking that word media away, really honing in on the word social is what that platform is typically used for. It's a way for us to engage with the public, engage with people that are using these platforms in a way that is different than screaming at them on a billboard to try and sell a product or a service.
The easy way we always describe it is push and pull. So the traditional mediums like TV, print, and radio are push mediums, and they work, and they're good, and they're valid. But the way
they push the information
out. You target your audience by the choice of the medium you use, and you push out a salient message to your audience. Social is a pull medium, where you need to draw them in with engaging content and using social as a way of building a community. So the message is different for the medium that you use. So a traditional message for a car would be, buy this great car, it's $300 a month as a payment. That would be a push message. A pull message on a social medium would be like, hey, wow, I've got some cool video on how this car was made. It's the engaging content that draws people in on a pull medium.
Is it the interactivity? Is that what builds that social network?
Yeah, I think for a lot of brands specifically, it's a way for them to reach their clientele or someone that may not be a client quite yet, but to extend their brand and extend the knowledge that they would have within their walls to the public using social media and those social platforms, and getting that ultimate buy-in from the consumer on that basis, and not necessarily on the, hey, I can get this for, like Andrew said, $300 a month. It's the watching the video of the guy applying the paint in the specific way or whatever that ultimately elevates that brand experience for someone. So on the other side of that, that gives the opportunity for someone to share that content with someone else within those mediums, and then ultimately get that interactivity and that conversation going online.
So within that, then, of course, is an implied third-party credibility.
Right.
If I see that Matty is, liking a particular kind of jeans, I'm going to go, whoa, if Matty likes them, I've seen Matty. I know these are probably good jeans. He's got more fashion sense than I do. There's a better validation of that.
I was going to say, does it become almost an implicit endorsement from one of your circle of friends and acquaintances?
You trust your friends more than you would trust someone you don't know. But it's interesting, then the message, again, has to be in the right context for the medium, or it's off-putting. If anyone who's a parent has had the experience of putting your kids to bed, and then once they're all quietly in bed, you turn the TV back on, and Treehouse is still on. And how that feels to, geez, Franklin at 9 o'clock at night, it's the wrong context for receiving that message. And in the same way, if you're receiving a push message on a pull medium, it's off-putting.
So is that one of the biggest challenges that any service sector business, any business with a hard product or something like that, where they're trying to explore this new medium in the social side. Is that the biggest mistake they tend to make?
There's, I think, two things: strategy and capacity. So strategy is the first part, and maybe Maddie can speak to that, but I can speak to capacity. It's important in the medium to be responsive and to be able to react to opportunities when they pop up, to engage your community. If you don't look at your Twitter feed or your Facebook page for 3 weeks, the opportunity to communicate with your audience is long gone. So having the capacity to be able to respond in the immediacy that the medium demands is important.
And it does demand it, doesn't it?
It does, and it has to be, because it is immediate. That's the draw of it. That's what keeps us hooked to checking that Facebook page on your smartphone every 5 seconds, even though you're sitting there watching television. It's the immediacy. But above all is that strategy that I think is key.
When someone gets involved with social and the term social media, like we said before, the ultimate or the first misconception is that you're using it in the wrong way, or in a way to push your message out, and that's definitely not the case. The biggest mistake people make is using it in a push methodology. The way you can get around that is developing a content strategy, and as Andrew had spoken to, having the capacity to execute those on a daily basis, on even, we're moving into an hourly basis now, just how fast social media is moving. So having the capacity to execute on pushing interesting content that will engage someone to come in and ultimately get into that conversation online. And, at the end of the day, what you want the public to do is become a brand ambassador for your brand online.
So there's some nuances within that too, beyond your overall content strategy, and that's the salience of the content. That's first and foremost. I got to care about this. You want to draw me in, it better be something I care about. But there's also things in your strategy around the volume. If you tweet out 1,000 tweets a second, I'm going to unfollow you. That's annoying. So finding the right balance of what volume should be in there, unless the content's absolutely amazing. And then also working within the timing of who your audience is. Say your audience is runners. Well, you may want to talk to them at a different time that you would talk to than if you were talking to all-night truckers. Content strategy would start to work through some of those things as well. What are we going to say? When are we going to say it? And how are we going to say it? So I always use voice and discernment as two important parts of your strategy. What's the voice? It needs to be a person. It needs to have a feel to it, a personality. And discernment is the other one. Know when there's a line that shouldn't be crossed when it comes to the content, or when you shouldn't be responding to certain things. So voice and discernment are also an important element of that strategy.
It's interesting because I think for a lot of people, when they think of social media, social networking, whatever you want to phrase it as, when they think of social, they go, oh yeah, I can just put up something on, Facebook, or I open a Twitter account, or I can do Instagram, I can do all these things, and it's not going to really cost me. My sense is that they don't really understand that to be effective with this, it's not necessarily a dollars and cents commitment you're making, but it is a time commitment and a timeliness commitment. Is that accurate?
Yes, that it's the capacity that needs to be there to manage it consistently and effectively, as well as integration, right? It needs to integrate with your other pieces. If you've got other marketing initiatives going on in your other mediums, they need to relate to your social platform as well.
So when you say integrate, is a consistent message, or should you, I always think of, okay, do you always make sure you use your same logo so it looks the same? Is it that type of thing?
Yeah, branding is always a way to be consistent, but your consistency ultimately lies within its layer. Social is just another layer, and I believe Rob Arnold from our office spoke to this a few weeks back, that it's another tool in your toolbox that you would move forward with in your ultimate marketing strategy or platform.
Need to take a quick break, guys. Stay with me through the break.
Yeah, sure.
You bet.
In the studio with me, Andrew Rathwell, Maddie O'Connell from Look Matters. Their website, lookmatters.com. That's lookmatters.com. Quick break. When we come back, how do you measure your success when you're dealing with social? We're going to address that next. News Talk 980 CJME. News Talk 980. Hi, welcome back to News Talk 980 CJME's Talk to the experts. In the studio with me, Andrew Rathwell, Maddie O'Connell from Look Matters. Their website, lookmatters.com. We're talking social, not really social media, a bit of a misnomer, but the same general thrust and idea. Just before break, one of the questions that I have to ask, and I'm sure that your clients ask you all the time, how do you measure? How do you know? It's like the Wild West there.
Well, and Maddie can maybe give us a little more detail on it, but a simple way I always like to remember it is a like is not a sale. It's an opportunity. A like is an opportunity to make a brand impression. It's not a sale. But there are some ways to have metrics around the success of your social strategy.
Yeah, fortunately, there's ways to track, stats on how your posts are doing, what posts are generating the most interest from your followers. But I'll take a step back, and when Facebook first was introduced, and you were able to like a specific page, someone with only 500 followers or likes on Facebook would be able to push out a piece of content which would get in turn 30 comments or 60 retweets. Now, as we see that the medium has grown and there's a lot more activity on the platform, we see that people are getting more of a chance to like a broader range of pages. So they're being more specific on what content they're sharing, what content they're liking, because there is that pool essentially now to draw from.
Yeah, you're more picky about where you may give your like now. So
it's almost a fatigue factor, isn't it? Where,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Which drives, again, the importance of the saliency of the content. It has to be good content. But it's the speed that always remains the value to me, is the speed of the shareability, that how quickly something can go from 0 to 1 million. I mean, the YouTube examples are a classic there, but how quickly that can go. But each one of those brand impressions has value, even if I don't like, if I don't share. You've made a brand impression on me by it going through my timeline and me consuming it. So they're all opportunities to make a favorable brand impression.
Is there a risk? I mean, you talk about the immediacy and how quickly things can go. You can be 0 to hero. Can it go south on you quick too?
It's the same thing as it is, regardless of the medium, that it's a lifetime to make a reputation, a moment to lose it. And there's certainly some examples of bad social media strategy or accidental tweets that have caused major brand damage to folks. So it's a risk, but that risk is there regardless of what medium you're involved in.
And that risk can, if you can solve the problem, effectively online, you'll gain way more reward for solving that problem or the issue that you may have caused by sending out a tweet that wasn't supposed to be there or something like that. The Twitter community is very supportive. So if you go out and say, yes, hey, I made this mistake, and ultimately admit that, then, you're going to get the community rallied behind you. And
there's that honesty and authenticity that the medium demands.
I was just going to say, it sounds to me that the demands, the reality, the necessity of the Brave New World is open and honest,
and
good and bad.
But it's a good example as well why a strategy and a content plan are important. That absent those, it's a blank canvas where it's very easy to put your foot in your mouth. But if you know what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, and how you're going to say it with the right capacity and tone, voice, and discernment, then you feel a little bit more comfortable about your reputation. Otherwise, it feels kind of like an open mic in a big radio station. Yeah. Anything could happen.
So, there are so many different social groups, networks, there's the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Pinterest. You get on how do you know? How do you know where you belong?
And don't get the Twitter crowd fighting with the Facebook crowd about which one's superior. I think that the short answer is, and I'm on the Twitter camp, by the way. I don't want to get in a fight with Maddie about this, but I think he's in the same crowd. But the short answer is there's lots of options. There's lots of choices. It's about finding which medium fits for you within the social realm. But I would speak about a couple that make sense, depending on what your business is. Yeah, Pinterest, which is largely driven by visual imagery, makes sense. Perhaps if you're a retail business with lots of things to show, like a jewelry business, that makes a lot of sense. Got the right target audience for them too. But a new one that I'm very interested in that hasn't quite evolved to where it should be is Vine, which is the ability to share 6 seconds of video. It's owned by Twitter, which is significant. Twitter picked it up 3 months ago after they weren't able to get Instagram, which is the other one though. So they said, well, what's better than Instagram? Video. The ability to have 6 seconds of video is an interesting concept. And Twitter owning it means that they're easily able to gather all of their existing followers on Twitter and turn them into Vine followers. So that's always the challenge for these mediums. Google+. Even when you're Google, you weren't able to get the kind of audience that you wanted. So Twitter might be able to convert its existing users very quickly. And that will give us, I guess, enough of a platform to start to be able to work with it. But the power of being able to do 6-second video is an amazing thing. It's insufficiently advanced right now. It's like lots of videos of people's cats and food. But this is the early days in the medium.
Yeah.
What would I be able to do as an advertiser, as a business owner, if I could communicate in 6-second chunks to you in full color video?
See, and to me, when you look at the Twitter, that conversion over to that shortened, condensed form of communication reflects similarity to tweets. So I'm thinking that should be as sensible or
the attention span.
Yeah.
The attention span has driven us to the point of 6 seconds of video. I always use the example on the media world where when Nixon was president, an average clip on the news was 60 seconds. By the time it's Obama as president, it's 6 seconds. So the world hasn't got that much simpler.
Yeah, we're starting to live our lives, 140 characters at a time now. just because the attention span of what you can get across in a social media post.
But you can get more in 6 seconds of video than you can in 140 characters,
That's
and
right.
that's the power.
If you do it right, too. Saliency.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Goes
with the
back
right content.
At the right content.
Cat videos are interesting, but yeah.
Only to a point. Andrew Rathwell, Maddie O'Connell in the studio with me from Look Matters. The website, lookmatters.com. Okay, so you have someone that comes to you. I mean, there's a lot of phenomenal businesses and service organizations and you name it out there, and they're really good at what they do. This is not something that they've ever had to deal with, think about, worry about. Now they're going, we really need to be doing something, but they don't know even where to start in a lot of cases. What's your advice to them? How do they start?
Well, obviously, come talk to us. I'm going to just put that out there. But strategy is where I think I would start with it. It's the traditional marketing approach. Identify your audience, identify your product, your price, your placement, and where you want to be. This is one of the mediums. Social is one of the mediums you can be in. But it starts then with knowing if it's right for you. If it is, then work through the strategy side of what are we going to say? What are we going to have to make our content relevant, to be in the right form of pulling people into this community?
Instead
How
of
are we
just
going to do it?
Pushing
Just
raw
pushing it
information
out. Yeah.
And what platforms to use too. I mean, as Andrew had already
And
alluded
that's the
to,
challenge, I think, is if you're a business owner, how do you know?
there's so many different platforms to use, and within those platforms, it's do I need to have a group? Do I need to have a business page? There's so many different layers to kind of mediate through, and I think we pride ourselves in being on the cusp of where these mediums are going and how to effectively use them for your business. We're not going to get you in a room and say you need to be on all of the top 10 social platforms out there, but there may be 2 that are just right for your business, and how do we execute that content strategy that we can create for you on those mediums that we've chosen for you.
And it's about outcome. At the end of the day, it needs to turn into sales if you're a business. That's the bottom line. I maybe think of Google Plus. That when Google Plus was coming out, we all looked at it and said, "Gosh, it's Google, right?"
Well,
So
what's the difference between Google Plus and Google?
Maddie has the best line ever. I'm going to steal it, Maddie.
Yeah,
the
go
best
for it.
line about Google Plus. Google Plus is like that party you go to, but no one's there yet. It looks like it's going to be a good party. The chips are all out, the music's on, but nobody's here. So despite the power of Google and the way that it connects to everything we do, they haven't been able to aggregate that full audience there. But the tools that Google has should make sense as being the winner, but it hasn't. The market hasn't rewarded Google with the kind of share that Facebook and Twitter have seen.
And this is what you keep track of, and this is the advice you give to your clients all the time.
Right.
You can steer them through the digital minefields.
It can be
At
very
some point, Google will force us all to like it, maybe. But
yeah, it can be very overwhelming, especially if you're just getting into it, for sure.
Well, and this is, again, where Look Matters comes in, where you guys can say, okay, here's the basics, here's the do's, here's the don't. Now, based on your specific business, industry, sector, and the goals that you have set, here's what you should be doing. Here's what you should never be doing.
Right.
And really, that's what people are looking for. Guys, thanks for coming in. It's great chatting with you.
Thanks
As
for having
always,
us.
it's
Thanks, Dave.
so
Yeah.
cool. I really enjoy it whenever I get a chance to chat with you. Andrew Rathwell, Maddie O'Connell from Look Matters. The website, lookmatters.com. That's lookmatters.com. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again. News Talk 980 CJME. News Talk 980 CJME.